So some random things this week, just some little jobs we did, some highlights from the garden, update on the pond and the keyhole, and I say just some highlights like this red-headed woodpecker at the bird feed, where I clearly needed to clean the lens before this, but that's okay. It's still really good to see him there. And here's the state of the pond right now. It's looking really good. We're pretty happy with it, how it's turning out. I added a lot of rock and it looks really good in there, and as you can see the water celery's taking over. Since this was done we have seen some of the water clover, but a lot of vegetation around it now too. Like I said, the rocks make the area around it look good. You see my tripod there, so I have some times where I've set up the camera and let it run for a long time that we'll go through later and sort the best of. Found a use for some of my little guys that I painted. Wanted to see how well they did. One of them has been sealed, the other has not. So the other, the job really that we're going to look at is trying to do something about the greenhouse, which had a lot of water in it, which wasn't an issue before. Part of the issue I know is that there is a gap between where that tarp ends and the end of the greenhouse, and there's clearly a space between the bottom of the greenhouse too on the top end. So what we're doing is we're going to put in a garden bed there to function kind of like a swale, but also just as a space to put a bed. And I had these cans. I've been wanting to do this with these cans and this piece of cattle panel where we plant them up, and I cut the cattle panel so there's just enough spikes sticking out to hold the cans and stuck them on there. And as you can see, there are some dahlias and there's some coleuses and a few other things. And of course, anytime we're making one of these beds, the first thing you do is lay down cardboard, and the second thing you do is water the cardboard so it'll grow. No, just water it so that it gets soaked up so it'll decay away after the compost is on there for a while. And we've had a lot of success. Most of our beds, if it's not a raised bed, this is how we did it. And we found that I really like using the paper bags. They're easier to carry around, they break down sooner, and we get tons of them. And this bed also is going to be a little bit of an experiment because it's the only bed that is going to be purely from the compost that I made. I've added it to beds and on top of beds, and we've had a lot of lamb's ear coming up everywhere. But I'm not sure it's in that compost because I'm not really seeing it grow in that compost in the pile it was in. I think it just spread everywhere because we let it go to seed. So we'll get to see that with this pile and see how well it grows. And then I planted obviously some tomatoes in the middle, and then there's more dahlias on each end. And if you're thinking to yourself, that's not a tall enough trellis for tomatoes, you are correct. But we'll see how this goes, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I have options on what I can do, and I'll decide that when the time comes what I'm going to do. Might do a few different things. But I think this is going to be good, and I think it looks good so far. And this is just a pretty flower. That's all. So we had a lot of rain this week, and so this is the beginning of the ditch that runs across the top end of our property over to the part that comes down the east side. And if this ditch wasn't here, all this water would run up the yard, wash out beds, and into the house. You can see, like out there, that swampy area is kind of where I want it to go. And then this is where I found a lot of broken stone and broken concrete that was actually in the way, and I moved it to help create an embankment, and I've since filled it in with dirt when I dig it out, let things kind of grow there. I'm also doing some dead hedges to help with this. And once it goes down there to that swampy area, then it's going to go down along the eastern side of our property, which you see here, kind of at the top of that where that starts. And it continues to flow down and around. There's some spots I need to clear. I try to clear out, especially starting up top so that the water moves faster. The faster the water moves, the more it will clear things out on its own. Sometimes I think it's actually a shame that it's not an actual creek, but it's not, and I don't have the intention to turn it into one. But if that ditch along the backside wasn't there to divert that water to the ditch, then all this water would just be running up against our house or running through our beds and washing things out. Because no one took care of that before, and that's how I know. This is a problem area. It's where it splits into two places. Luckily it doesn't affect anything. This is in the woods, some areas that are clear, but I tried to divert it more towards the one that runs on my side, but these two ditches split and they're going to come back together. But it gets real boggy here because everything washes down here, and where it splits, that's where it catches it. So that needs to be cleared soon too. But you can see that's the water that runs closest to my house. And then this is where they come back together and pick up speed again. When I first moved here, I think there was about a foot of leaves on the bottom of all this that I had to clear to get it to run like it's supposed to. But yeah, it gets down here and it just kind of flows away. And this is obviously, this is the back side of it. This is the back end of the shade garden is where this is at. Which is why I had to shore it up on the backside to keep stuff from washing into this ditch. And this is one of the hostas that I found when I cleared all that woods, and that one is magnificent. I probably need to move the variegated. I've split the variegated. I've split this one. They need to be split again, but I just thought that hosta looked magnificent, especially wet like that. And then the keyhole, which there hasn't been anything really new in the keyhole. It's just been doing its thing this last week. We had done a lot last time with it. So yeah, that's where we're at. It's kind of what most of the week has been, the highlights. I hope you enjoyed it, and next video will probably be a more or less full tour of what's going on.